Hare Krishna. Gradually they'll know, oh, there's a warm place I can go to. And you'll see, it'll fill up. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Na Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Page 237. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On its 13th day of February 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text 10, bottom of page 237. Brahmani Adhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Tena Sapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa. Chad. Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa. Nelson, you want to try? Brahmanyadhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasapapena Padma Patram Ivambasa. Anyone online? Come on, Tapas, I know you're out there. Guess not.
Brahmanyadhaya Karmani
Brahmanyadhaya Karmani
Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha
Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha
Lipyate Nasapapena
Lipyate Nasapapena
Padma Patram Ivambasa.
Padma Patram Ivambasa. Word by words. Brahmani, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adhaya, resigning. Karmani, all works. Sangam, attachment. Tyaktva, giving up. Karoti, performs. Yaha, who. Lipyate, is affected. Na, never. Saha, he. Papena, by sin. Padmapatram, a lotus leaf. Eva, like. Ambasa, by the water. Translation. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Purport. Here, Brahmani means in Krishna consciousness. The material world is a sum total manifestation of the three modes of material nature, technically called the pradhan. The Vedic hymns, Sarvam Yetad Brahma, Mandukya Upanishad 2, Tasmad Etad Brahma, Nama Rupam, Annam Chajayate, Mundaka Upanishad 119, and in the Bhagavad Gita 14.3, Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma, indicate that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Ishopanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman, or Krishna, and that everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is to be engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. Even one's material body, being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action, can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is then beyond contamination by sinful reactions, exactly as the lotus leaf, though remaining in the water, is not wet. The Lord also says in the Gita 3:30, Mai sarvani karmani sannyasya. Resign all works unto me, Krishna. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of the material body and senses. But a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna, and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this is one of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is officially known as Bhakti Yoga. Now yoga means in general to link. Hare Krishna. Can we turn it off? It's to make it silent. Hare Krishna. So the word yoga is similar to the word yoke in English. Yoke means to yoke up a couple of horses or bulls or something to link them so that their effort will be useful in pulling whatever vehicle you're on, right? Plowing, whatever. So yoga means to link our consciousness with the Supreme. Now what is that Supreme? That's kind of a vague term. And it's related to the word Brahman. It's kind of the translation of the word Brahman, which comes in this verse at the very beginning. Brahmani, unto the Now Prabhupada translated unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Brahman means basically spirit, consciousness, pure consciousness. So we learn, I remember this is one of the first things I learned when I joined the ashram back in 1973. And it could be, might as well be 1873 as far as it's pertinent. So we are also Brahman, and there's this phrase from the Upanishads, Aham Brahmasmi. There you see that word Brahman is in there. Aham means I, Brahman means Brahman, or spirit, and Asmi means am. I am Brahman. So this is a very important understanding. I am Brahman, and Krishna is also Brahman, but he's Para Brahman. He's the Supreme Brahman, and we are Anu Brahman, individual, little, minute. But our quality is the same, just like the drop of water in this ocean. You get a cup of water, say, you know. It'll have the same chemicals as the whole chemical composition. The salt will be there, and so many other things dissolved, you know, whatever's in the ocean these days. So, similarly, we have the same qualities of Krishna, but in minute degree. Minute degree. And in the human form, now as spirit souls, we can inhabit any of the over 8 million forms, the Vedas say, of different species of life. Just in this one block, you walk out this door here and you're in our famous patio, and great effort has been made to plant different things there. And we have different flowers and different plants, and we have a tree. And each one of those plants is a living entity, just like us. But the consciousness is much more covered, much more rudimentary. What is the real consciousness of a plant? You know, it has to be covered, otherwise you would be disturbed all the time, right? That can't do anything, can't move anywhere, you know, everything. But there's a consciousness, the sun is out, so let me, you know, spread my leaves a little bit and get some more, you know. And you have the sunflowers, which can actually move, right? Can't they? I think that they can. So that's their, you know, and then they get, you know, if they get nourishment from the bottom, they're living. But what kind of life is that? That's a tragic life. It should be teach us, because this is a very important point, and that is that what determines what body one inhabits. We're all human beings here, except for the little bugs in the wall, whatever. right, in this room. And what is it that's brought us here? Well, you're interested in Bhagavad Gita, spiritual life somehow. You know, there's some interest there. And maybe in the nice kirtan, maybe in the prasadam, whatever it is. It's all spiritual. And that's very good. But only human beings can be interested in that. Because the general form of life or way of living in this world is to be impelled by the senses. You get hungry, the dog gets hungry, he looks for some food. Okay, you have a nice master, they feed me, I'm going to give me something, yeah. You know? So eating is there. We all eat. We all consume, even the plants. They're drinking through the roots, the nourishment. They're also eating. So eating has to be there. And reproducing. Plants are reproducing. The dogs are reproducing. The fish are all doing it somehow or other. You know, new species, new examples come out. You know, this is the way of life. So reproducing is there. Especially in animals, any kind of moving, living being, there's some process of defense, or the fight or flight instinct, isn't it? Oftentimes it's just flight. What defense do birds really have? Well, basically, if there's any danger, boom, they're gone, right? I take a walk up this cast, you know, it's an adventure every morning. There's one corner, it's just, there's a restaurant on there, and it's a takeout. You take out, and then people don't often throw their cups into the thing, so it's or sometimes a mess there. And so there's some little bits of food stuff, and you find the hawks are coming down, even the seagulls come down, you know. But as soon as I sense that I'm approaching, boom, they take off. This is their defending. This is their way of safety, right? Somehow being safe. Human beings have an elaborate way of defending, you know, and fighting. So eating, sleeping, and of course sleeping, there has to be some rest involved, you know, after all this work of eating, hunting, you know, escaping. So we share that with the animals. And there's a very nice verse in the Shastra. Shastra is our scripture. There are many different books. One is called the Hitopadesh. Hitopadesh means instructions for the benefit of the people. Very nice. Hita is benefit, Upadesh is instruction. So in that book, this verse is there. It's a Sanskrit verse. It says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitunangcha samanya netad pashubi naranam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nahina pashubi samana. So we share these four things with the animals. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, in our own way. This is the function. So what's the difference between us and the animals? Dharma. The word dharma. Now dharma is an English word by now. English just vacuums up all kind of words. It's the French words, and there's German words, and there's Sanskrit words. I once looked up Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and sure enough, in the unabridged dictionary it's there. Because England, they occupied India for so long, it came in, you know. So what is this dharma? Now dharma is often translated, you look it up, it's a religion. Basically it's religion. But dharma has a very specific meaning in Sanskrit. And what it really means is the essential nature of something that determines what that thing is, you see. Like I always give the example of like these nice benches that our nice friend Bhakta Joseph financed. We didn't have these a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. So what's the purpose of the bench? To hold you up, to sit. They're like a little chair, a kind of chair. And notice that the color of those cushions exactly matched this paint. It's not an accident. I guarantee Bhadri Narayan Swami was involved in getting that color because he likes it. So there it is. Those benches, they're high quality. I think they're made of teak, you know. It's very sturdy. And they have a dharma. They just sit there patiently, you know. And then if someone sits on them, they hold you up. Very nice, you know. That's the dharma, the chair. And now if you have a chair, and we had some chairs that we got rid of, some plastic ones. And if you sit on it and it collapses, it's not following its dharma, you see. The dharma of salt is to be salty. If you think that it's sugar, you go in the kitchen, we have these big bins, you know. And if by chance you get the sugar and get the salt, you put it in the sabji, doesn't taste right, right? Or vice versa, you put the salt where the sugar should be. But it looks the same, but the dharma is completely different. So what is our dharma? What is real dharma for human beings? So Srila Prabhupada would quote this verse from the sixth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one of our major books, the major book, foundational book. Dharma. Bhagavat Pranitam. Dharitation Bhagavat Pranitam. That Dharma is the words of God. You say, well, that's very nice, but I don't know how I can hear the words of God, you know. Well, what do you think Bhagavad Gita means? Do you know, Bhakta Chad? What's the translation of those two words? Bhagavad Gita. All right, Nelson. The song, Gita, of God, Bhagavan. So this is this very special book. No one will say, yeah, right, you know, who says it's the words of God? Well, this is also a very significant point. We have a what we call disciplic succession, a series of saints who have come down and teach. The student becomes the next teacher, you know, and it goes. The link goes all the way up to Krishna, and it'll be coming down. And in history, we have Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whose guru was Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, whose guru was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and you go on and on and on. And these are all great realized saints who embody the descriptions in the Bhagavad Gita of great souls. And one of the characteristics, for instance, is that they're fearless. They're fearless in spreading this knowledge. You know, undertake great risks, and even though they undertake great risks, they're not. I don't want to use the word freaked out, but they're not greatly disturbed by dangers that they may come in touch with. They're threats, because they feel themselves on a different platform, a spiritual platform, protected by Krishna, protected by God. And we saw that with our very own Acharya here. The founder Acharya of this institution is named A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is a murti, or a statue of him. In every major temple you'll find something like that. And he has an incredible history, how he came. You know, he came to America, which had practically no knowledge of these things. There was some, you know, interest in yoga and things like that, but there was a lot of confusion. Even though there was other translations of the Bhagavad Gita, there was no Bhagavad Gita as it is, without some of the authors' own distortions on it. You know, so he's giving it as it is, and he embodied this disciplic succession, and he's giving us instruction. And I came 6 years after he arrived. Actually 8 years after he arrived in '65. And the movement had been established by that time. But I saw him. He came in several times to Brooklyn, where I was, and then in L.A., where I was. I saw him several times, you know, personally. And he by his very presence, you could see he is what we call a God man. You know, he wasn't. He was always on a plane of peace and happiness and joy and eagerness to share with all of us who would, you know, receptive to the message. And he gave us not just the knowledge, but also the means to realize the knowledge. And simply put, it centers on the chanting of this mantra, Hare Krishna mantra. The power of mantras is pretty much unknown in Western science. But mantras are there are all kinds of mantras. There's a whole science in India of tantra. Tantra is not meant for realizing God, right? But you can chant mantras to get the power to kill your enemy. You know, you can attain certain mystic powers. Like I experienced personally, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers. He was initiated also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His name was Krishna Das Babaji, very austere. He was living in Vrindavan, very wonderful and realized soul. So he was there when Srila Prabhupada was leaving his body. What do you say? We leave the body. We say no one dies. You know, they leave the body and they re-enter the spiritual world. So he was there, and Srila Prabhupada, everyone loved him. He was very joyful, always chanting, very giving. And so he was in Vrindavan, which is in northern India, and after I was there just afterward, and then I went to a place called Mayapur near Calcutta, which is at least 1,000 miles from Vrindavan. You know, it's down on the Bay of Bengal in Calcutta. You look at the map, you know. So there's a major place of pilgrimage there called Mayapur, Navadvip. And that's where I flew to go, to participate in putting in the Prabhupada's garland in bottom, which would then become his Pushpa Samadhi. It's a whole company. And so I saw him in Vrindavan. I flew. I don't even think I took a train. I think I flew from Delhi to Calcutta and then to Mayapur. So I was there a day later, or less, and he was there. He was already there. How did he get there? He didn't take a train. They don't even take trains. What to speak of planes? He had a mystic power. He could go by means of the river and so forth. I saw it myself. So there's a lot of amazing things that we don't even know about in the West, and that can also be a distraction, to get mystic powers, be able to read minds. Prabhupada tells a story when the British were ruling India for I don't know how many years, 150 years, 200 years, and the Indians got independence in 47. So a lot of Prabhupada, when he was growing up, he was living under the British Raj. He was born in 1896, and then he lived in India and Calcutta and other places, So he heard, so many stories. So in, I think it was in Delhi, New Delhi, the capital, the yogis would come down from the Himalayas sometimes, because it's not that far. And so here was this yogi, and he had a power, and there's different siddhis, and one of them is anima siddhi. By controlling the mind and chanting mantras and so forth. It's completely material, but it's subtle, and so he had the city to become very small. So he was walking around Delhi naked, and this was against the laws when the British ruled. It's not these. So they arrested him, put him in jail, in prison. They had a local jail and put him in jail. And the next day he's out. What's this? They arrested him, put him back in jail. The next day he's out. He's getting out through the keyhole. He had the anima siddhi. After a while, they threw up their hands. Well, what can we do? He's going to walk naked on the street, These things happen. So these subtle powers are there, but they're not the subject of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga eschews all of these material things, because even if you want this powerful siddhi to be able to get smaller than the smallest, or to be able to control minds or whatever it is, it's still material. It's still fruitive. You want it for aggrandizement. And in fact, in the history from the 60s, when it became clear that there was a market, that the Americans, the Westerners, were getting interested in yoga and mysticism, chiefly by dropping LSD, which you probably heard of, yogis started to come over. But they were doing it as a business. They had the aura, the long hair, the beard, whatever it may be. And they had a following, and people would give money, and they would become wealthy that way and travel, It's a corruption of the real meaning of yoga. And that's why Srila Prabhupada came. He obviously wasn't into that. He had so much money at his command, after a few years of preaching, because he was giving this genuine thing. But he never stopped traveling, which is a big thing when you get older, to keep traveling, going on planes and everything. Because he knew that there were different disciples all over the world that needed his instruction, and he could really help out. So that was one proof. And just him coming to America at age 69 to start the movement was a proof that he wasn't in it for material comfort. He could have simply stayed where he was in the holy land of Vrindavan, and like all basically his godbrothers were doing, settling in and preaching in the local area temple. But no, he had this order to spread this science all over the world. So what is this verse all about? So we read Brahmanyadaya Karmani. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results to the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action as a lotus leaf is untouched by the water. So living in the world, there are certain expenses you need to make, I mean, again, on this walk, I'm seeing the outside world. Oh, these poor homeless people in this freezing weather, it's painful to see. Crunched up near, a wall, trying to cover themselves and sleep, It's unfortunate they don't even have enough money for shelter. There's a major homeless problem all over the country, that. So, but if you have some kind of job and you pay, you can pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever, housing is a basic thing. So you have to have shelter, you need clothes, you need food, you need all these things, basic, if you're going to live in this world, not under the protection or the intimate shelter of the society like this. We have brahmacharis living, they don't have their own, but they have food, they have the shelter, they have the protection, and so living that day in renounced life. So that's what he's talking about. That's the ideal, but grihastha, or household life, spiritual household life, is definitely part of our congregation. And I would say that most of the devotees who are in this movement now are householders. You know, we have in India, there's hundreds of thousands actually. I don't know if they're initiated, but they're tremendous. And vast majority are householders. So what does it mean? It means that as far as possible, you give the fruits of your action, of your activities, for the benefit of Krishna. Now, why would we do that? Because the main idea is that is our natural state. We are spirit. I remember I started with that. Aham Brahmasmi. Krishna is supreme spirit. We're what Prabhupada would call part and parcel of Krishna. And the example he would give of like our own bodies, like the hand, the legs, the tongue, all of our different organs, they work according to our will for our benefit, right? The hand, if I give it the order, I don't think, all right, hand, now I need some water. Okay, sure. You don't do that. It works, right? In other words, all of the parts of the body are for the benefit of the whole body for the person. Similarly, we are parts and parcels of Krishna. Our natural state is to serve God for His pleasure. And the wonderful thing is, and this is because we're all pleasure seekers. God is the biggest pleasure seeker. If you were God, would you want to have like we have now, the ups and downs? Sometimes you enjoy, sometimes no. If you're in control, it's always up, right? The highest pleasure. But what is the highest pleasure? Even in our own life, it's love. It's a loving exchange. That's the actual fact. And we try to even engage in inanimate things like that, to have our own comfortable things that will serve us nicely, But that's just Maya. That's just what that does is keep you focused on this world. And one of the laws of nature that is described at the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita is the law of like transmigration and karma. As we make our attachment, notice that in this verse that we read, one of the words was sangam tyaktva. Sangam is transferred as attachment, right? And tyakta, giving up, becoming free of attachment. What is it that brings us back? What's the disadvantage? Okay, I'll ask some of our experienced devotees here. Dvijamani Prabhu, what's the disadvantage of coming back again? I'm sorry? Yeah, birth, and what goes with the birth? Old age, disease, and death. Right? Disease, just think of the disease. The real kicker is the disease part of it. The others come and go real quickly. Disease can last for years, a whole lifetime. So, and we have, how do we deal with disease? Well, we have this, health insurance. We have a vast medical establishment, trillions of dollars, to counteract disease. But it doesn't really work that well. You're still diseased and you're still threatened with disease. We had this pandemic where suddenly on everybody's mind, all over the world, am I going to get this horrible disease where I can't even breathe? We take breathing for granted, right? Well, during the pandemic, everyone's going, well, maybe I should wear that mask. I don't want to. But disease comes in all kinds of ways. Mental disease and different, cancers and everything. We know, So we fight it. We have medicines, we have this, we have the diet, we have the regimen, okay, exercise, But it's just putting it off. Eventually some kind of disease is going to get you, right? You're going to suffer. And then comes the big one, death. Death. But the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita is, you don't die. Nobody dies. Najayate, mriyate, va kadachan, nayam bhutva bhavitava nabuya, arjo, nitya, shasvato, yamparano, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. He's saying that you don't die in so many ways. Najayate, you're not born. Namriyate va, and you don't die. The body is born and the body dies, but you're not the body, you're the spirit soul. You lived before, we all did, we're eternal. Aja means we're not born, and we never die, you see. But we change bodies, even in this one body we change bodies. It's obvious, we've all been 10 years old. Has anyone here not been 10 years old at one point? Right? And we had a different body, we had a different mind, right? Different aspirations, different time. And then gradually it changes. You turn 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, you know, whatever it is. And all that time, your body is changing. Slowly, but it's changing. And it's a big, complicated machine. They're still trying to learn exactly how so many things work, especially the brain, you know. And that complicated machine was created by a perfect, you know, incredible intelligence. God intelligence. It's such a foolish thing to think that all of this incredible, intricate material world, including our own bodies and the cells and everything, somehow came about by chance. That is the most crazy thing that you can imagine. In our own lives, does anything, you know, become organized by chance? Just if you live in a room and you don't straighten it up and clean it up, it becomes dirty and confusing and messed up. What to speak of, you know, the whole universe? So there's a supreme intelligence in the supreme person that is, through you know, he's expanding so that he can, again, what would God do? Delegate everything so that what can he do? Play all the time. That's what the lila. That's what we want to do, but we can't. We got to go to work, got to pay the rent, got to do this, got to do that, right? Because the body's demanding it and because the relationship's demanding it. But so God is all powerful and all knowing and all good, is that omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. And just contemplating those three, which is straight out of Western theology. You know, those are, you know, basic qualities. But how does he manifest that? And omnipotent, so powerful. Therefore, why wouldn't he have the most beautiful body? Why wouldn't he have the most wonderful relationships that he can enjoy for eternity? You see? And because he's conscious of us, he's within us in conscious. He's also compassionate. We're his children, and we're suffering here out of ignorance. So he comes or sends his representatives, but here he comes directly and speak this Bhagavad Gita, which is the ABCs of spiritual life. But we have to learn those ABCs. So that we can be benefited, so that Dharma can be instituted in this world. Back to Dharma. So one of the verses that is so important for understanding Dharma is in the Srimad Bhagavad Purana. It's another book, this graduate study of this science. Right near the beginning, second chapter of the first canto or first part, in verse 6, the speaker, who is full of knowledge, he says, Savaipung sang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Ahaituki apratiyata yayatma supersediti. So what is that supersediti? That supersediti is a quality of being completely satisfied and peaceful and confident, you see. What is that dharma, that religion, that practice that can make us completely satisfied and happy in this world, you see? And that's what he's saying here. Thanks for coming. Hare Krishna. So he says, Paro Dharma, the supreme Dharma, or religion or activity, religious activity. Yato Bhaktir Hokshaje is that which causes one to advance in Bhakti Yoga, to become more and more enlightened in the process of what Prabhupada called devotional service, Krishna consciousness, service to God, you see? And if one can practice that without material motive. Material motive means, yes, I'm going to, you know, worship God and I'm going to pray to Him, you know, to cure my disease or something, you know, or so I can make some money, you know. That's not what it's for. Hare Krishna, thanks for coming. Well, some come, some go. Welcome, Mark. Hare Krishna. Good. So, yato bhakti hokshaje, that which engenders this bhakti or devotional service to God, which is free of material motive. And what is the motive then? The motive is to express love and gratitude to God. Just like we have cooking going on even now in the kitchen, right? There's a last offering that you'll be able to taste when Krishna eats it after the arti at 8:30. So they're supposed to be, and I assume they are, they're cooking it not for themselves, but they're cooking it with Krishna in mind, that he'll taste it. And it'll be offered to the deity with love and devotion by the pujaris, you see. And after it's offered, it becomes prasadam. Prasadam is the grace of the Lord. Comes in all forms, you know. And one form it comes in the form of food. Sanctified food that's prepared with love and devotion out of very certain ingredients. Vegetarian, of course. And so that is pleasing to Krishna. When you cook for him, you know, he doesn't eat, he doesn't consume it. They don't go on and say, oh, he ate half of this and half of this, it's gone. No. The whole thing is there, but it's now sanctified. And so partaking of that food doesn't keep you bound in the material world. It helps you to develop your love for Krishna. This is one of the basic loving exchanges, giving and receiving food, isn't it? Valentine's Day is tomorrow. What is the box of candy, right? Isn't that what you give your girlfriend? Or, I don't know if the girlfriend give it to the boyfriend. It's been a long time. But the idea is that in every culture, you know, you feed the person that you like, you love it. So that's one of the principles, but then the kicker is it has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. It can't be just one day a week, you know, that you go to church or anything like that. No, it has to be integrated into your whole life to really get the benefit. Now, what's the ultimate benefit? The preliminary benefit, part of the benefit, is that if you perfect this process, you don't have to take birth again. That of course, everyone's going to die because everybody's going to die eventually. But that's the last death. You get out of this round of janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, old age, disease, and death. Birth, old age, disease, and death. It's there for every living being, not just human beings, obviously. Even the ants take birth and eventually they die, right? And these trees, which have been here since I've been here, I don't know if they last 100 years or what, incredible. But there's a limit. Eventually they're going to get cut down, you know. So, but this will be the last one, your last death. And you'll face it with complete equanimity. We have had devotees pass away from here, you know, here. One was like a 36-year-old lady, who, you know, Shamali. She wasn't here, she was in Alatra, she grew up here, Yamuna's daughter, one of his daughters. And very wonderful girl. I remember I used to, when I first moved here in '89, she was just growing up, a little kid. And she lived right across from us. And she learned to play the flute. And it was very endearing because I played the flute for many years. She was playing the flute, you know, and then she went to school. She went to the UK and went to school. Then she went on a festival tour in Poland. Very famous. Dravida Swami does it every year. And she became back to her roots, as it were. She took initiation and married an alumnus from here named Bhishma Dev, who still helps us. He helps us with maintaining the website of this. Anyway, it was a shock that she had cancer and everything, but she faced it with equanimity. Her father went out there. I called a couple of times and chanted verses, and her guru was he was in Vrindavan, but with the cell phone, he would spend time with her practically every day. And she was, described when she died, when she left her body, she was very peaceful, very calm, very joyful. You know, it wasn't a mystery what was going to happen. She was Krishna conscious, and he described that the Vaikuntha airplanes came and took her away, and she was peaceful. You know, and you know it's sobering to think, but it was a successful departure. And of course we had Rajendra Nandana Prabhu, who's very the same thing. And so I've been there, and oftentimes they ask me to sing Hare Krishna. So I've been present for quite a few departures here. And it's a different thing. I worked in a hospital for a year when I was back in the early 70s, before I even knew anything about Hare Krishna. And I would go up to, I was on inhalation therapy, so we provide the breathing, for so many patients, seriously ill patients. I saw so many patients die. And mostly they're sedated because everywhere it's just so disturbing and painful. And that's really the worst thing, because you want to be fully Krishna conscious, and the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to somehow remember Krishna when you leave this body. That's success. The most prominent thing thought that you've had during your lifetime will be that thought that is there, and that thinking is what determines your next body. back to my morning walks. There are certain, I've gotten to know some of the people who walk their dogs, even in this cold weather. There's this one guy, he's got this funny little dog, he's about this big, and he's a big tall guy. And the dog is waddling, you know, and the guy is a little gruff, you know, so I usually say good morning, but I just say good morning to the dog now, you know. But he's very attached to that dog. I don't know if he has a girlfriend, because I never, you know, he is the one who's always walking that dog at 6:30 in the morning. So he's got attachment for the dog, and he very well could think of that dog, you know, when he leaves his body, and he'll become a dog. That's what determines, you know, whatever your mind is filled with. And so we're training as devotees, if you're serious about it, by chanting this mantra. This is the great benediction of this age. Because, let's face it, this is not an age where you can really practice yoga successfully, which means, you know, hours of meditation. There's just so much going on, and so much imposing and you know, on your consciousness, that it's very difficult to practice this meditative yoga. And indeed, even 5,000 years ago, Arjuna said it's impossible. Krishna described it in the 6th chapter, and Arjuna says, "Chanchalam himana Kṛṣṇa, pramati balavadradham, tasyaham nagaham manye, vayuri vasaduskaram." He says, "Krishna, thank you for, you know, describing this, but it's impossible for me, because the mind is too restless and disturbing. It's like trying to control the wind." And when I read that, you know, when I first read it, I came here in '89 after living in Miami for 6 years. And there you got to be conscious of the hurricanes. You know, you got to watch, you know, when hurricane season comes, about July, I think it goes, you know, through September. And we had a few. Luckily, when I was there, they didn't strike in Miami. But right after I left, there was a huge one coming right for the temple. And I called up my friend there in the temple and said, "What's happening, Dharma?" His name was Dharma Das. "Are you guys evacuating or what?" No, we're going to stick it out. I said, "Really, you know?" "Yeah, you know, and we'll be all right." I said, "Okay." And so sure enough, the hurricane veered to the south before it hit the coast, and they got some damage, but hardly anything. But a whole air base, U.S. air base, was destroyed, and it hasn't been built up. It was, you know, those things are powerful. So that's, he compared his mind to an uncontrollable wind. So how can we, but you have to control the mind. You have to fill it with Krishna, you know. How to do it in this age. This is the benediction. In the Srimad Bhagavad Purana, near the end, in the 12th canto, after a whole list of things that are prominent in this Kali Yuga. People don't live as long, they're not as merciful, they don't have as good memories, and, you know, all this kindness is going. So there's a whole list, but it said, yeah, Kalir Doshanide Rajan, O king, this is a great sannyasi, Goswami yogi, described this science to a king, a pious king, who was going to die in 8 to 7 days. So he's coming to the end of the book, and he says, this Kali Yuga, the age we're in now, the age of quarrel and combat, can anyone deny it? Whether it's in the home or, you know, in the world events, there's always some war going on. So it's called Kali Yuga. It's doshe nide, it's an ocean of faults that he just described, some of them in summary in the previous chapter. Asti eko mahadguna, but there's one very wonderful quality, special quality of this age, benediction. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangam param bhajet. Kirtanad, the chanting, especially the congregational chanting of this mantra, of the name of Krishna, eva Krishnasya, mukta sangam param bhajet. This word sangam appears in the verse we read. Sangam chakva. Sangam is attachment. Material attachments that you have, latent attachments, they'll bring you back again the next life to try to fulfill them. So here it says mukta sang, it relieves you, it breaks those material attachments, and param bhajet, and you can go back to God by becoming attached to Krishna, the all-attractive one. That's what the name means. He's the most compassionate, most friendly, most kind, you know. He's the one who loves us eternally, whether we love him back or not. You know, but he takes great pleasure when he sees that we're turning our attention to him and even just beginning devotional service. So this is a great benediction, and it was spread by Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he lived within recorded history, 1486, right? That's just 10 years before the famous, was it 1496, where Columbus in the waves. Anyway, yeah, he is Krishna himself in the mood of a devotee, showing us how to be a devotee to Krishna. It's quite esoteric. And it's a wonderful book that Srila Prabhupada translated at great effort called the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that described this life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He's postgraduate from even the Bhagavad Gita. But the main thing, he did for the masses, massive kirtan of Hare Krishna mantra. Here it is right here. Very easy to learn. And the meaning is, Hare is Krishna's consort, the goddess of fortune personified in the sound. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, Prabhupada would say. The word Krishna comes from the word Kṛṣṇa, which means to attract. Everything that's attractive about somebody. The beauty, the intelligence, the joking ability, dancing ability, the compassion and love, Krishna has it to an extraordinary degree. And his pastimes show how he engaged with so many different devotees in that way. So, Kirtanada Krishna Mukta Sangam. You become free from material attachments. Just like Sangam Chakva is the same meaning as we had. Chakva means to give up and become free from Sangam, material attachment. So what happens to your attachment? Because we have to be attached to something. It all gets transferred to Krishna, Krishna's devotees, things related to Krishna. And that attachment makes it easy to be detached from all the things that are keeping us bound to this world. You see, we have these 4 regular principles which sound very hard to do. From this age, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and no meat eating. Prabhupada tells the story. Oh, it's getting late. That it sounds like, well, that's basically what I do. I'm one of those things. Anyway, it's difficult if you find out that you have to give that up. Just like meat eating, a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm going to become vegetarian because I know it's good for me. But after some time, they drop out of it because they remember the hamburgers and those wonderful steaks and the chicken nuggets and whatever else. So they get off the wagon and, but in Krishna consciousness, it's a regulation. And luckily, there's all this wonderful prasadam. Like the other day, Darni Dar, everyone knows Darni Dar, So they came on Saturday and cooked a bunch of samosas and he brought them over to my house. I hadn't had samosas in a while. Fried stuff is a little bit much for me, so I had 1 or 2 of them, but they're really delicious, And then I put them out here at lunch the other day and boom, they disappeared, So it becomes, that's the easiest one, really, if you think about it, giving up meat eating. But becoming detached from those things, you find that, well, yeah, I liked to do that before, but now I don't even want to do it anymore, because you're becoming purified from Krishna consciousness. So it's the easiest thing to do. There's no regulation. Anyone, anytime, anywhere can chant this mantra. And Hare Krishna. So if you will just reciprocate, let's chant it just one time. We'll do it a little bit at a time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so that's so we're going to sing that in a few minutes. And before we do that, I'll give you a little poem, because that's my signature now. There's a little poem. And I'll tell you what, I'll do the first verse of the Shikshashtaka, which is all about the holy name. This is written by Lord Chaitanya himself. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahada vagnini vapanam shreya kaida vachandrika vatadanam vidyavadhu jivanam. Anandam pradivardhanam pratipadam purnamita swadanam sarvatmasnapadam padam vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal. The chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention, as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare. So let's adjourn and prepare for a nice little kirtan and seeing the beautiful deities. Radha Giridhari, who I was reminded today were actually Raghunath Das Goswami's deities. Radha Giridhari. And this is his appearance day. Wonderful appearance day. So we will resume tomorrow on text 11, I think it is. Yes, text 11. Sorry, we're going kind of pretty slow through the book, but if you want a little faster version, you can get on YouTube.